study session meeting of the Waverly City Council to order. Roll call, please.
Here.
Breakhouse. Vegas.
Here.
McKenzie. Rocky. Here. Scherer.
Present.
And Wilson. Here.
And our guest council person, Danny Haugen, is here. Yeah. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Council discussion. All those in favor of the agenda as presented, say yes.
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 Opposed? Agenda is approved. Entertain a motion for approval of the March 4th, 2019 regular meeting minutes.
I'll move approval of the March 4th, 2019 minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Council discussion, corrections, additions? All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? Minutes are approved. Leads us to our first highlight. The community highlight is recognition of the Waverly Shell Rock boys and girls wrestling teams on their 2019 state championships. Oh, they're outside.
Some of them are here.
Well, Carla has them all lined up.
Oh, she does.
Yep, Carla has it.
Any wrestlers that need to be out in the hallway that are in here? Okay, should be good.
They're all out there. Okay.
Hello. Congratulations, Eric. Pleased to meet you.
I don't know. Okay.
Are you going to read names or what?
You are.
Okay.
Go for it.
Oh, you're not going to do that.
Whoops. Eric, you being the head coach, I believe.
Yes.
I have a plaque for you from the city of Waverly for the Waverly Shell Rock girls wrestling team for first state championship in the history of the state of Iowa, if I recall right.
Yes.
Very good.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
There's a
Okay, so we'll follow up with the rest of the coaches.
bet.
We have Brett Behrens. You have to help me with your name. Alonzo Demessi. Is that right? Josh Meyer.
Congratulations.
Cody Pierce.
Congratulations.
No. Oh, Nick Sand.
There you go. You keep up that position.
Mike Schwab.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
And Brett Whelan.
Congratulations.
Give you somebody else.
Great job.
Okay, and now we have the wrestlers.
Thank
Abby Bechtel. If I ruin your name, tell me. Anika Behrens.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Hannah
Congratulations.
Johnson.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Hedda Kivian. Avery Meyer.
Hang tight
JC
a
Meyer.
second.
Great job.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Kaylee Reyna.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Congratulations. Rachel
Congratulations.
Roos.
Thank you.
Or Rose. You've seen them both.
Keep up that leadership role. Yeah.
Emma Nelson,
Congratulations. Thank you.
manager.
Congratulations.
Good job. Carly Steyer,
Congratulations.
manager.
Thank you.
And Cody Pierce.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Congrats.
Okay, where are we at now?
We're now with the boys.
Congratulations.
The head coach. We're back. This is the Waverly Shell Rock Boys Wrestling Team for state championship of 2019. Add to their collection of several over the past year.
Number 10.
Number 10. Very good. Congratulations.
We'll recognize the coaches, Brett Behrens.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Demesio.
Thank you.
Josh Meyer.
Congratulations.
Is he here?
You bet.
I know this guy. If you saw him.
Mike Schwab.
Congratulations again. Take it out.
Do it again.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's a great program. Great job.
Thank you.
Okay. You can go on through them. Nick Sand.
Congratulations.
Dylan Albright. Zach Barnett.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Carter Feck.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Jacob Herman. Congratulations. Bryson Herbal.
Congratulations.
Congrats. Good job.
Caden Langrick.
Congratulations.
Grant McDonald.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Great program.
Congratulations.
Lane McDonald.
Spot of wisdom.
Good job. Sean
Congratulations.
Wangi. Thank you. Good job.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Aiden Riggins. Royal.
Congratulations.
Bailey Roybal.
Great job.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Good job.
Congratulations.
Andrew Snyder. Congratulations. Luke Walker.
Congratulations.
Gavin Wiedemeyer.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Braden Wolf.
Congratulations.
Even Yacht.
Congratulations.
Oh, Evan. Sorry. J.C. Meyer.
Congratulations.
Okay. Ethan Chestnut.
Good job.
J.C. Meyer. Good job. Emma Nelson.
Congratulations.
Good job. Carly Steyer.
Congratulations.
Good job. And I assume the other two girls.
Congratulations. Sorry.
Great job again. Good work.
We get everybody?
Yep, that's it.
Cheerleaders and everybody?
Children were not here.
Okay. So the assistant managers and those want to give them pins for the...
It's a lot of people that were not here.
Okay.
Did you have these counted?
No.
Trainers.
Or do you want to let me go and I can get them? How about I...
That'd be easier. Okay, very good.
That'd be easy, and then I just drop them off.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yes, this is major. Yeah. That's right.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I'd also like to note that Waverly grad, former Waverly wrestler Bryce Steyer earned All-American honors this weekend at the NCAA Division I wrestling.
Big wrestler from Iowa.
Championships.
Really catapults that.
I think I read that in the,
That deal, exactly.
in the papers.
Tradition continues.
Yes. No, it's... hopefully the girls can continue a long history of championships as the boys have over the years. So.
Never take the title away, and they can never take the first title.
No, they could never.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on with the next item is public comments for any item that is not on the agenda. Is there anyone here that has something they'd like to say to the council and/or staff about something that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next first order of business is a Municipal Housing Commission update.
That's kind of a hard act to follow. Christmas.
Don't mess with them.
Guess not. We were noticing that some of them were awfully tall and skinny. It was like they should have been basketball players, not wrestlers.
Leverage.
So anyway, I'm Rebecca Loss. I'm the Executive Director of Waverly Lower End Housing. Many of you have seen me here many times before. You've been putting through some of our invoices lately, and hopefully by the end of the month, by the end of April, you'll be putting in a new contract for us. The zoning change has finally been completed. AHTS Architects have designed us a new 2-story building with 14 apartments for the 420 16th Street Northwest property. And if you drove by, the old house came down today. It's in a pile of rubble in the basement right now, so they're working on getting that cleaned up and everything so we can hopefully start construction sometime the end of April, the first part of May. So it's kind of exciting, but it's also kind of sad to see an old relic. It was a beautiful old home, but we had a lot of people in that salvaged a lot of pieces and stuff. The flooring, some of the windows, the air conditioners, the water heaters, and everything. It was pretty torn up by the time I walked through it on, I think Friday afternoon I walked through, and and I know my maintenance guys were back in there on Saturday grabbing a few more things. So hopefully we didn't waste too many things. We will be meeting with the general contractors tomorrow to go over the contract, and then it'll be presented here to you all to sign off on it. So hopefully, like I said, we'll be able to start sometime at the end of April, first part of May. It's awfully muddy right now. In the 2014 City of Waverly housing study showed a need for additional senior housing, so this is one of the reasons why we started this project. It will be a building for people that are 62 or older, because 62 is the definition of the federal government as elderly, which I don't agree with much anymore. And our applicants for this apartment building will also have to meet the income requirements as required, and we'll put them through background checks and the whole bailiwick's what we do with everybody now. It's just that these people have too much income, so they can't really live in our housing, our current housing, but they really aren't extremely wealthy to, afford the $900,000 condo or apartment rent that we see a lot of in the city of Waverly. So hopefully we'll fill a little niche there that hasn't been filled before. And the good news is for you, the city council members, and for all the taxpayers in the city of Waverly, is we have the money. We're not asking for any money. We're not taking out any loans. We all have it in reserves. We've been saving money for many, many, many years. And we just felt that the board felt that this was a good project for us to take on. The land came available in 2014, so it's been kind of a slow process to get us here, but I think it'll be a good thing. And we're already getting calls. When is that going to be done? When is it going to be done? Well, probably April of next year is what our goal is. You know, a lot of people don't understand that Waverly Senior Housing does not get any funding from the city of Waverly. We fund ourselves. We live on our rents and the subsidies that we get from the federal government. So we're not a line item on your budget. So, and we're proud of that. You know, we do our own thing. We don't spend money wildly, but we do improve and update as things need to be done. And so we have, you know, we maintain 100 apartments now, and we'll have 14 more soon. So, anybody have any questions or comments? Or Bill has been a big help, weaving us through all the ins and outs. And
Well, kudos to you for all you've accomplished, really.
well, thank you, and I appreciate all your support, because, you know, without your support, we couldn't be doing this either. So, thank you.
I think the community greatly appreciates everything that goes on up there, along with the leadership that it has. And you have a very good board, forward-thinking, and a very good director.
Well, thank you.
So,
Yeah, I have some board members that have been there longer than I have, and I've been there 17 years. So, you know, I do have a very good board, and they take the time to do what we, you know, look to the future to see what we can do to improve the lives of anybody and everybody. So,
I was just going to ask a quick question. The units are suitable for couples as well as
there'll be some
single?
2 bedrooms and 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms, a couple of fully handicapped accessible apartments.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I second the comments about the value of what you're doing and how you're doing it.
So, but it's, like I said, that house came down pretty fast today. They started about 10 o'clock and it was down by noon, so. Okay, thank you.
very good, thank you. Next item on the agenda is a discussion on tobacco and nicotine-free parks.
Good evening. Amanda Rantham, Community Health Specialist of the Waverly Health Center, is here tonight to talk about to start a discussion about tobacco and nicotine-free parks. Well, we have a presentation from her at the last Senior Services Commission meeting, and they recommend to the City Council, and pardon me as I read this, to approve a no nicotine policy in the parks and trail system, excluding the golf course, Memorial Park, Ball Diamonds, and the county fair area, with the caveat of when the conversion takes place, when the fair and diamonds move from the current location, those areas become nicotine-free. So without further ado, I'll let Amanda talk to you.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Hello, thank you for having me. I have a couple of handouts for you. Do you have, I don't know if you guys have any of them yet. I'll pass these 2 around. Look at those. Oh, they have them all.
This one over
there. I got an extra from them too. Well, take them all when they're finished. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, this one. Sorry, I'm new. Yeah, that one. All right, so as Tab said, my name is Amanda Rampant. I'm the Community Health Specialist over at Waverly Health Center. So what brings me in front of you today is we hold the Tobacco Prevention and Control Grant for all of Bremer County from the Iowa Department of Public Health. So we just want to have a discussion tonight about the possibility of passing a tobacco and nicotine-free policy for our parks and trail system here. So to start off, to put it very, very simple, tobacco can be harmful to the community and to the environment. So we're here today to talk more specifically about our parks and trails, which is a very important part of our community and the environment our citizens live in and interact with on a daily basis. So we would like to propose that all Waverly trails and parks be designated tobacco and nicotine-free, with the exception of the places that Tab mentioned. So parks provide a variety of healthy, active, and positive recreation opportunities to the community. A tobacco and nicotine-free policy would reinforce the original purpose of parks and outdoor spaces, which is to be active, to be able to relax, and to enjoy the outdoors. So tonight I'm going to work off the mission of leisure services to kind of drive the point home for tobacco and nicotine-free parks. So the leisure services mission, we believe in making the good life better by providing safe, modern, well-maintained, and aesthetically pleasing environments for the community of today and tomorrow. So I'm going to start off with that first point being safe. I think we can all agree that environments are generally safer when tobacco products are not being used. Secondhand smoke is a major concern. It harms adults, children, and animals. The only way to fully and completely protect people from the harmful effects of secondhand smoke is to eliminate it altogether. The Surgeon General reports that there's actually no risk-free level of secondhand smoke, so even brief exposure can cause harm to health, which is why even trying to create a smoke-free area or designated area within the park seems to be an ineffective solution. The Surgeon General also reports that even secondhand smoke being emitted from e-cigarettes, electronic cigarettes, can also be harmful to health. So that's why we're addressing all tobacco products as opposed to just cigarettes. Secondhand smoke is known to cause cancer, heart disease, and chronic lung ailments such as bronchitis and asthma, and that's especially in children, as well as many other health problems. The CDC states that more than 41,000 adult non-smokers die every year from complications from secondhand smoke. So those are adults who've made the conscious decision not to use tobacco products themselves, and they're being harmed by others who have chosen to use tobacco products around them. In addition, discarded tobacco products or tobacco waste can be harmful when ingested by, say, a curious child who's walking by, sees a cigarette butt, decides to pick it up and put it in their mouth, or even pets that frequent park areas that may ingest that tobacco waste. So that includes cigarette and cigar butts, chewing spit or leftover chewing tobacco, and even now the e-cigarette cartridges, and those are especially harmful. Those cartridges that contain the e-cigarette juice, is what it's called, are very highly concentrated in nicotine, so they can be very dangerous if ingested and even lethal in some cases. So the next part of the leisure services mission that I want to touch on is providing modern environments. So when you think of the word modern, you might also think of the word progressive. I think you would all also agree that Waverly continuously strives to be a progressive community and to make progress towards better conditions. Our community frequently seeks change for improvement. Tobacco and nicotine-free parks would be a highly progressive move for our parks and trail systems and lead to improved recreational environments for families to interact in, which leads to more social connections in the community. There are over 100 communities in our states alone that have already made this decision to have a policy or ordinance that states that their community, their parks, are tobacco and nicotine-free. Two examples of that, a community, Indianola, has passed a policy which is a community similar to Waverly. They've passed a tobacco and nicotine-free policy, and then Grinnell actually has an ordinance passed for tobacco and nicotine-free in their park. So they've added a little more teeth to their policy where they're eliciting fines for people who are using tobacco and nicotine in those spaces. So back to the mission. The next part of the mission I want to touch on is well-maintained and aesthetically pleasing. Aesthetically pleasing meaning giving pleasure through beauty. The environments that our residents interact with should not only be safe, but they should be appealing, inviting people in and making them want to spend more time out in their community and encouraging visitors as well. A policy like this would most definitely lead to a cleaner environment. I think we can agree on that. Tobacco litter is not only unsightly, but cleanup is time-consuming and can be costly for taxpayers. As mentioned previously, discarded tobacco products can pollute land and waterways and can be ingested by animals and children. So especially with the waterway that we have going through our community, I think it could be very beneficial to rid our parks of that waste. And the last part of the mission would be today and tomorrow. So children who see adults using tobacco in a family-friendly environment, such as a park or recreation area, may think that tobacco use is acceptable, and they're much more likely to mimic that behavior as they grow older. It normalizes the behavior and leads to continued generations of tobacco users. Tobacco and nicotine-free policies encourage young people to make healthy choices. The more tobacco and nicotine-free environments a community can provide, the fewer opportunities youth have to start using tobacco in general, which leads to a healthier community years from now instead of another generation that's addicted to tobacco products. So with all of that said, us as community members, you as council members, we all have the opportunity to make a lasting impact on tobacco use in general, but also on our community when we're addressing this type of policy. Any questions for me?
Well, I certainly would affirm what you're after. My question would be, would there be a problem enforcing it?
Yep. So that's usually the number one question. With these types of policies, it's similar to any other self-enforcing policy that the community might have. So for example, picking up pet waste or removing snow off the sidewalk. So generally self-enforcing. The Department of Public Health does provide free signage for communities that pass these type of policies. So there'll be lots of signage up in all of the parks and along the trails as well, and that's offered at no charge. So that will be one thing. We'll focus heavily on communication if the policy is adopted, communicating out to community members that this is something that Waverly has decided to adopt. But in general, it's peer enforced too. So I think tobacco users often get a bad reputation where people just assume that they're going to abuse it and they're not going to follow the rules. But usually when people see a sign...
After you.
So the e-cig, does this include vaping? Is that?
Yeah.
And that's a nicotine product?
Nicotine product, yep, correct. Yeah, the problem with e-cigarettes, not only are they physically dangerous, as I talked about the cartridges that come with the e-cigarettes, but we're facing a whole new generation of nicotine addiction with youth. It's becoming, like I said, it's normalizing that behavior of tobacco use. So not only are we trying to make safer, healthier environments, but we're also trying to promote that idea of not using tobacco as well.
I mean, I like the idea of promoting health and safety. I guess my question is, if that's really a goal, why are we excluding any areas then?
Do you want to speak to that?
I will.
Okay.
The exclusions are basically areas that are traditional smoking and be much more difficult areas. Golf courses typically, they do allow smoking on there. Softball diamonds are as well. And there's no county fair site in the state that is not smoking right now.
We could be progressive.
I mean, it's like we're all for health and safety except for you guys. It's just it seems odd.
Depends how much battle you want to fight, probably. But yeah, no, I agree with you.
I certainly I've been on the golf course and had to get annoyed by the cigarette butts and things that you find there. So
if the golf course was something to consider, that's somewhat separate from the parks because it's not technically a city park. So that would be a separate policy, not saying we have to avoid it. It could be worked on. We definitely have the resources to be able to do that. But like Tab said, it would just be a little bit harder sell. As far as Memorial Park goes too, there are no tobacco and nicotine-free fairgrounds in the state. Not saying that that's impossible because, again, we have resources to be able to make that happen. Just kind of a bigger project.
Does the State Department of Public Health provide receptacles for people to put their cigarette butts in when they enter the park, or
that I don't
might
know
not
for
want
sure.
thrown in the trash can if they're
right? That I don't know for sure, but I can find out.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I mean, I talk to people all the time about quitting smoking, and I did have the same thought Tim did when I read it, that I would like all those people to quit smoking too, but it would be very difficult to enforce. It's going to be tough to enforce anywhere, and it's going to be up to each person in the park to speak up, just like if you see somebody who doesn't pick up their dog poop. But I think it's a great idea because kids watch what adults do, and they. I agree with Amanda about the vaping. It's a problem. It's not safe to vape, even though people think they're safer than cigarettes. So I think it's a great idea.
Well, I remember when Wartburg made the transition to a tobacco-free campus, and I think there was some transition period where, okay, I'll be honest, my wife is a little bit of a anti-smoking enthusiast. So when she would see the international students who are, smoking a little too close to campus, she would make it clear where the boundary was. I think that, there'll be a transition period, but I think people will learn and we'll be better for it.
How long do you have the grant?
We've held it for, before I was even in the position, for years, at least 10 years, and we continue to apply every year. We've always been awarded it. So this particular item is not actually one of our grant goals. It's just something that we feel like is important to the community. So we're working out, it's still part of the grant, but we're working outside of our specific goals to accomplish it.
So it could still, expansion of it could be down the road and still use some of the grant dollars.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Is this something that we want Bill to draft an ordinance and/or resolution?
We're looking for a policy rather than an ordinance. We think small steps are best. We get the word out, and if we want to do an ordinance later on, especially when the fair moves out, then we can draft it then.
So you'll be drafting a policy, is that what you're saying?
So this will be go to Leisure Services, we'll create the policy?
We've got a good start right now. I can talk to Bill and he can help me wordsmith it, and then we'll bring it back to council to make it official.
How often are the ball fields at Memorial Park being used for kids' ball right now?
It's last year was much more than in the past, and it seems that they're requesting as many this year as they are last year. It's probably at least a third of the field time is for kids.
So do you want to say that no smoking is allowed during a kid's activity, or does that get too difficult you don't want to make it too complicated?
I'm not sure right now if there's any policy at the AMVETS Diamonds or not. I'm unaware of that. I would be open to that.
Is something that we want the public to weigh in on with a public hearing of some kind?
Sure.
Certainly.
Yeah,
I think that would be...
Yeah. We'll bring applications for the quit line for all the people who are here wanting to smoke in public parks. Can refer them for free nicotine replacement. So
I think maybe rather than a public hearing, maybe have a open forum or something like that.
Well, yeah, however you want to.
And have a formal public hearing.
Since it's a policy, not an ordinance.
Sure.
Put it on the agenda and publicize it, and so that we can get as many as the general public here as would like to be anyway. Okay, if there are no other questions or comments for...
Would this include the rail trail?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So the rail trail extends beyond city limits?
But it's all city property.
City property.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, very good, thank you. The next item for discussion is to review the fireworks ordinance, section 104.4.01. Open for discussion. I know that several communities around the state have revisited this particular subject in the past few weeks. Some have lifted their ban and went to 1 or 2 days. Others have not done anything different. So, open for discussion.
Well, I do appreciate the information that's been given here regarding other cities and what they're doing. It was kind of nice to see the comparison.
Yeah, that was very helpful.
I suppose I'm of the opinion that it's still a little early to be tweaking things every year. I know that there are people who would love to see a complete fireworks ban, but I'm kind of partial to just leaving it where it is and trying a couple of years before we try to be making any wholesale changes. So I'm not going to tell you that it's perfect. I'm not going to tell you that there weren't complaints. But I think that it wasn't an unmitigated disaster, and I think that we should probably, keep trying it until we get some obvious trends.
Could, for our sake and for the public's sake, could somebody summarize what we have both in the summer for the 4th of July and for New Year's? Does anybody know that off the top of their head in detail?
It's on our charter.
I think the limits in the summer
thank you.
is June 25th to July 8th, and then in the winter it's December 31st.
But there are times associated with that too.
Correct. It's noon to 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and noon to 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday, and then noon to 11 p.m. on the 4th of July. And then December 31st, it's New Year's Eve from noon to 12:30 a.m. on January 1st. This is, I'm reading entry number 4 on the ordinance, section 104.4.01.
So right now we basically have 2 weeks.
About 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Roughly. I guess I'm with Brian. It's kind of where I was last year when we changed it after just the 1 year of information on it, that I just don't think there's enough information out there to keep constantly changing it and changing it again and changing it again. I think it would be good to have some data over a couple of years to actually see what the issues may or may not be as people, initially get the opportunity to do it, and then maybe some of them get it out of their system that, hey, I've done it, and it's not as big a deal as it was the first year and then second year. So.
The only thing I would say is that we have had, at least I have only heard from people who would want to either restrict it more or ban it. I haven't gotten any feedback from anybody that this is great or we need more. And 2 weeks is a long time.
I'd be in favor of limiting the 4th of July time. I think that, I went and looked at houses where they had holes in them from people shooting fireworks where they shouldn't have. They were shooting them in alleyways. Reports of intoxicated people shooting them off. And, in my professional life, I certainly have patients who have PTSD, and it's one thing, I think, to prepare for the night of 4th of July, to go to the basement, to go out of town, do whatever you have to do, get extra medication from me to manage your PTSD, but 2 weeks is a long time to have unpredictable blasts happening in your neighborhood, and I'd be in favor of cutting that back significantly.
How far back would you like to see it cut?
Well, as Edie said, I've only heard from people who wanted it banned so far this year. Back when people were having them shot off in their neighborhood, I heard from people who wanted them banned or cut back to just a couple of days instead of 2 weeks. I know we had tried to do that to get the weekends on either side of the holiday, but I'd be in favor of either, I'm undecided at this point, but either banning it altogether or cutting it back to a couple of days.
Well, I would suggest that if you're hearing fireworks, you're probably hearing from people who are in support of launching fireworks.
Well, I was hearing from people and then going to look at the scars on their houses from where they'd hit their houses or were on their roof.
But I mean, I'm kind of thinking that the people who are supporting the fireworks law as it is are shooting off the fireworks.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, if we have people shooting off fireworks, most of those people are in support of at least some fireworks.
Right.
So.
What I've heard has been, it's way too long, along with, some want total bans, but it's about the typical people, veterans and the pets and the babies that are trying to go to sleep at 9
Senior
o'clock.
citizens, I've heard from,
Senior
too.
citizens and things, so you could probably.
I suppose my biggest frustration is the fireworks that go off before it's legal. I mean, so we have, our opening day is June 25th, and I'm pretty sure that I'm hearing fireworks the week before that as well. I would like to have a couple of years where people know the starting date, so hopefully we won't have those early fireworks going off. If it's the sort of thing where it doesn't matter when the starting date is, people are always going a week early, then it does make sense to shorten the window. But if we can actually have a fixed starting date and then people respect that starting date, I don't think we need to shrink it. I think we need responsible citizenry. If people don't want us to shrink the window, they have to respect the window and not be launching them off before they should. And I think that if we have people who are launching fireworks the moment they go on sale, well, then we probably do need to shorten the window. It's kind of the speed limit. And when you set the speed limit to 65, everyone's doing 75. So if you want people to drive 65, you got to set it to 55. I would like people to respect the windows that we have and not set them off early. But if we don't get people to respect those, then I think shrinking that window would be in order.
I guess the question is, how many years do you give them to figure out when the start date is? I think it was well advertised last year. The times were public knowledge. And it's tough to enforce, I know in our neighborhood, if you hear a big boom 2 hours after they were supposed to be done, and you go out to your driveway as I did, well, I can't tell where they're being shot off, So if I was going to call the police, where would I tell them to look? And do I even know if it's in the city limits, depending on where you are in the city? So,
well, on that,
I agree we should have responsible citizenry, but we didn't last summer.
Well, the same notion, we can't restrict what goes on in the country. So, I mean, if they're outside of city limits and setting off fireworks,
That's true.
The ordinance doesn't really apply in that case either.
Yep.
And if it's unenforceable, it becomes pointless to have the regulation too. That's the other side of it.
Well, it's sometimes enforceable.
But we clearly had less before we had this ordinance.
Well, so the reason we have more fireworks now is because the state law has changed years ago. Yeah. I mean, I get very frustrated at the idea that we have things that we're selling in the city that we're then telling people they can't use.
Right.
If it's legal to sell in the city, I have a hard time saying that you shouldn't be setting them off. If people have problems with the sale of fireworks, they should talk to their state legislator, their state senator. That's the proper venue for stopping the sale.
For sure.
Because we can't.
Now it's taking it out of our hands.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We have no ability to restrict the sale of fireworks.
Yeah. So it makes very little sense, really, for the legislature to say, well, you can't stop selling them, but you can ban them. So then we're giving you permission to sell things that then people are not allowed to use.
Yes, thereby encouraging people to become lawbreakers.
Right.
No,
so that's
they can use them. I mean, if we were
They just can't use them in city limits.
Right.
When you look at this chart that we've been provided of the cities that have bans and have limited use, right now Waverly's really on the generous end of that.
Yes, we are.
There's a lot of these communities that are saying 1 day, 2 days, 4 days. To me, that makes a lot more sense than this extra time frame that we've got. And I keep thinking about these people that talked to me last year. There were quite a few. And some of them really had some health issues. They haven't talked to me lately, but I'm sure that those concerns haven't gone away, and they're going to be thinking about it again this year. So I think the issue is still with us. And I have to agree, a shorter window would make more sense.
With all due respect, I just don't see the value of waiting however many years to see whether behaviors change. I mean, I think the behaviors have established themselves already. We have smart citizens in Waverly by and large. I think if they choose to do something that is not according to code or ordinance, I think they're doing that knowingly. I'm just going to assume that. I mean, I don't think it's because they can't read or they don't know when the dates are. I don't think more time will tell us much of anything except to probably, encourage more, how should I say, drift from what the ordinance is. But I would want to, so I too am open to talking about a more limited time period or a ban, but I would want to make sure we had an opportunity for the citizens to weigh in on that. Mm-hmm. So I think revisiting it is fine as long as there's an opportunity for citizens to express their views.
Okay. If we're going to change the ordinance, we need to have 3 readings, one of which would be a public hearing. I don't know, are you in a position to direct Bill to draft another ordinance that we can?
Just to be clear on that type of ordinance, you're not required to have a public hearing. However, we can.
But we would still need 3 readings.
That's correct, unless you were to set the rules aside.
Mm-hmm. I'd be all for 3 readings. I think the more time and thought and public awareness we can make, the better, and just see where the citizenry is on this.
Or do we, if without a quote concrete ordinance change, can we have three readings and then draft the ordinance kind of to fit? Or?
Well, we'd still have to have 3 readings after that fact as well then.
So it seems like we need some sort of way to have public comment and discussion.
No, I agree.
And then come up with a...
You can start with a proposed one and then you can tweak it somewhat.
At the meeting.
Before the 3rd reading.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So are some of us saying that we would be okay with working with staff to develop?
I would say if you're going to go down that path, you might as well go down the path of a total ban rather than cutting it short every 6 months, because that seems to be what we've done so far. And it just might as well just go and ban it completely. Just be open and honest, straight, that that's the path that it's headed to.
I don't think we're being not open and honest. I think we don't know. I think I'd like to hear what people think, and I didn't hear any stories about the one day with, now of course it was colder, but that there were problems with that short amount of time. But
process-wise, it might be easier, Tim, I think, to start with some sort of detailed limitation, because then if the input from citizens is that they want to ban and we're all persuaded that that's the right thing, that's an easier addendum or change in motion to make in the 3 readings.
But we've already had a limited, we've already done the limited.
Yeah, but it's limited, but like someone said earlier, a very long period of time compared to most places that are limited.
I think that length of time came about because there was a perceived need to include a couple weekends, so that if company was coming on one of the weekends, they could take part in the celebration. I'm not sure that's necessary, but whatever.
Well, yeah, Brian, do you have an opinion on limited, if we worked on something?
I mean, again, I don't think changing is a good idea. I mean, if you want to, it seems like a common date period would be July 3rd and 4th. Mm-hmm. That seems to be what a lot of people have. I would like to keep the New Year's Eve as is. I don't think there were any complaints or problems with that. I mean, again, it may be because it's so cold, people aren't lingering outside too long.
There were some.
Oh, there absolutely were some, but they weren't going on for 4 hours.
No, so. I don't think that's a problem.
No, I don't think so either.
It's the 2 weeks at 4th of July.
It does seem like July 3rd and 4th is kind of a standard window that a lot of other communities are using.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we could just draft that and do the do
Tweak it from there.
And tweak it from there if we need to, depending upon what we hear from citizens.
Sure.
Okay.
Not to muddy the waters, but I see that the state law allows it from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. weekdays and 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. weekends. We go along with those hours also?
No, we started with noon.
Okay, good. I was going to suggest that a bit. Okay, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
The end hours, I believe, are the same, but the start is noon.
Perfect.
Well, and
okay.
the state law went from June 1st through
Yes.
July 8th.
Yes.
So December 10th through January 3rd.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so Bill will prepare a ordinance for us to work on at a later date, providing we get it before the 1st of June, probably, or middle of June anyway.
Yeah, it'll be good to get feedback from people
Yeah.
about what they'd like
I
us to
can
do.
have it now, first part of May.
Okay. Very good. Next item is Perkin KDV Council Computer Update. Not sure what all this entails, but
I'm Andrew with Bergen. We're here just kind of throw some options up for you guys and discuss some options for replacing the equipment you guys are sitting in front of now. Long story short, it's coming end of life. We have to replace it by January 1st for security reasons. Because the operating system on them, they're just so old we can't upgrade them. Getting right into it, some of the options we...
Sure, speak into the microphone, please.
I apologize. Some of the options that we had discussed, and I don't really know if there's a good spot to kind of set this for everyone to see.
Yeah, how about here?
So we discussed an idea of throwing a laptop in front of you guys and a monitor, so there would be no more switching back and forth. You would have both pieces up at the same time as an option. Well, and then...
So that's the laptop and monitors talking about?
So the monitor would be queued to whatever's up on the overhead or projecting here, and we keep the laptop. Could keep
Correct, for notes and anything else you need to.
So we have a
Go ahead and you want to show them? The monitor itself will be the same with either the two options we've talked about or brought in with us.
That's nice.
Thanks. It allows us to slide it up and down. Allows it to slide up and down so you guys can see
It's a
better,
little
I think,
bigger.
than what you have in front of you now as far as
Yeah.
looking out here with everyone. The other idea is to do a replacement as is, like you guys have now with new monitors, and then a small device like this that is the computer. We can either mount it behind the monitor so it's hidden, or we can do it under the desk as well, whichever one you guys would prefer. I usually don't like banging my knees into stuff when it's down there, but
What exactly is that device?
this is a computer.
Okay.
It's a full workstation. It's just a micro size.
Be the new tower.
I'm not worried about banging my knees on that. It looks pretty small.
Just my toes.
The mounts actually go right up on the bottom.
Your feet up that high.
Sensitive to.
But they do have mounts for those that go right behind the monitors that Jordan had walked around, and they also have mounts that just would go right under the bottom of the desk side.
So in that case, you would just have the one monitor, the one screen?
Correct, and you would still be flipping back and forth like you do now. We could do two screens, but that would be a lot of real estate on the desk, where the laptop can kind of shift
And
around.
a keyboard would
Correct.
still be.
Keyboard and mouse would still be there.
Would we be replacing the keyboards also, or not?
Yes,
Quieter one?
yes. All the new ones are much quieter than the older ones. Any other questions or ideas you guys wanted to discuss?
Well, I've always wondered if there's a way to, and I'm sure there is, it's a matter of how much it costs and whether it makes sense, but is there a way to not have any computer and just the screen?
Just the screen, we still have to have something that would power it. At the moment, we could remove the computer and have it displayed.
No, but could it be a network connection or, something like that doesn't require...
Would you still want to interact with it or just have it be a static display?
No, interact with it. That's not possible.
It's possible, but for your guys' environment, it's easier to do the full device versus a thin client. The cost would be a big factor in that.
Yeah, okay.
So many CPUs don't take up very much space. My question was always about even being able to have a monitor that was more recessed, and whether in the dais or just down, because these tend to sometimes get the feeling that we're hiding behind them at times, and so having it that was still visible. I don't know, we've got the lighting situation here, so.
Yeah, and we can always look at, we wouldn't be able to do it ourselves, but I'm sure someone in construction or furniture could look at cutting out a spot to set those in.
But you're saying even, I think what you're trying to say is.
Even with this,
yeah.
I mean, this is about the height yours are right now. You can lower this down. I can even set it next to Bill's here.
Set it in. Can you tilt it too?
Yes.
Was it?
I guess
So that's as down as far as down.
So you would have to reset it again.
We could really hide if we
Probably get this in Kevlar in the back.
The big thing I do see with this sitting there, though, I don't know if you want to kind of set it in a couple spots, Jordan, so they can see, is just the real estate for viewing. Yeah, you guys are going to have a lot better ability to see things.
Yeah.
I know one thing that staff talked with Bergen KDV about was if you had a laptop, you need the monitor so that it'll work with your box. However, when they're not being used, you could tip it down, fold it down, whatever, to get it out of the way and just use the laptop. So we talked also about having a screen come out of the ceiling, but there again, it all depends on the box and how it works with presentations.
As soon as we get the heads-up holographic displays, that'll be good.
I don't know, I think having a monitor and a laptop with a monitor, I mean, that's gonna, and the keyboard would be on the laptop, but that's just a lot of stuff.
Space-wise, it's going to be very similar to what you guys have when we kind of laid it out and tested. It would be very similar to what you currently have.
In some sense, if we have the two monitors, we're also getting rid of the box that's used for switching monitors.
Oh, that's true.
So we're trading that.
Gives you the ability to have the agenda item and any documents there as well as what's being presented.
That's true.
Doesn't happen a lot, but there are some times where I like to switch back and forth and kind of.
Can't pull it up.
Or we can follow the emails that we're getting during the meeting. Just kidding.
Or you could also fold the laptop down to see the monitor, whichever way is more comfortable for you.
Are we doubling the expense if we'd go laptop and monitors both?
There's a slight increase, but it's nothing astronomical. It's roughly about a rough estimate of about $200 to $250 per station to go from the workstation up. And then the cost of the second monitor, if we would do two monitors with a single box, if you guys wanted that piece, or if we continue doing the dial with a single piece with just the workstation. If it's just the laptop, it would be the one monitor and then the laptop device, roughly $200, $250 difference.
But if we have the laptop and the extra monitor, that extra monitor is only going to be for the display things. It's not going to be. I really prefer the larger monitor for kind of the computer output. I mean, there are times when
right.
Even on the computer, I've got kind of different tabs where this is the agenda and this is the other documents. It'd be nice to have like a big enough monitor I can have them both up at the same time.
For those maps.
Too. Exactly. Some of those maps would be nice to. Well, sometimes I'm looking at Beacon, trying to figure out where we're talking about. It's nice to be able to have, more room on my monitor to be able to see different things. If it's just the monitor for when they're displaying stuff, I don't know if that'd be an effective use of a larger monitor.
Yeah.
Andrew, would the monitors versus the laptops have the same quality of visual on them and same speed as far as bringing one thing up to another?
Yes, the performance-wise, a laptop versus the small workstations would be very similar, very comparable. As far as viewing a state, I know the 15.5-inch monitors are fairly large because you can get them pretty close to you too. The piece that we looked at as far as limiting how much hiding you guys are without here was kind of that 22-inch monitor size as well, and that's what Jordan had walked around. So unless you guys, we can go bigger, but we try to keep it to where you guys are at now so you're not behind even more things.
And you're saying you don't believe that a thin client would make sense for us?
There would be a much larger cost to do that
Okay.
due to the current configuration you guys have.
So the extra monitor is really just for the things that end up on the TV screen. Is there some other way to show us that information than each having an individual monitor?
A lot of times we have that on in your agenda.
It's in our agenda packet typically anyhow.
Almost always. Isn't it more for the citizens?
Yeah.
We can also.
But they'd still.
We can also project it from the projector and put it on the projector screen behind you. If we lowered that down. That would require all of you turning towards the projector screen. I think that's why we kind of got out of using it. I kind of personally, I prefer having the microcomputer and the monitor and forget the laptop. But that's just my personal opinion. You guys have to make the decision that's right for you.
I would agree. Well, I suppose I would phrase it, I like having the larger monitor for my computer. And if that means I've got a microcomputer and no laptop, that's fine with me. So.
Okay. Are you saying the same thing?
I think so. Yes.
We're talking about a microcomputer, which is what they showed you,
that's
versus the thin client.
Right.
The thin client is
That
different.
plus a keyboard plus a monitor.
Right. No, I know.
And then you could show things on a screen if you had to, if it wasn't in our agenda packet.
Well, and we'd still have the switch. You can switch back and forth as
okay, we
necessary.
still do that.
Yeah.
But and then then we're just replacing the monitors and the towers and the keyboards.
Correct.
With a larger
And
monitor
operating
and a
the
smaller
same way.
tower.
Well, if you wanted to get away from switching, you could put some decent sized monitors dropping down, as long as you're not having to manipulate them. If that's all that was showing was just a dead screen with what the presentation was, that would get away from a second screen. Flipping this, it would just be up. And you could look at both in a sense. But again, height-wise, I don't know if that would work for you or not. So we are looking at trying to get much bigger screens for the walls, since they are very hard to see for the public at times, especially for something smaller. So these, you can see the thickness of them. There's some age on them. We could do a lot better for not that much money to really enhance the view in here as well. But that was just another thought we talked about, is the drop downs. So at least you could see that without having to worry about flipping back and forth. You could even put a couple
Well, and when we were in budget meeting and you put that diagram up here, it's really helpful to have things that big that are
Well,
that
some of that
detailed.
was the resolution too, which you had to mess with to get it bigger.
Right.
But yeah, if you had a much bigger screen, it'd be a little easier that way.
Yeah, I agree with what Brian said. It would be nice to have a bigger monitor and skip the laptop. I'd rather put that money into getting bigger TV screens so the public can see things. And
Sure. Would it be possible to wire a few of those up to see in Agenda Manager what it would look like on that size monitor? I mean, maybe that'll help as well. I'm not saying right now.
Yeah, we
but
didn't
I'm
bring
saying
anything to do it at the moment. We could definitely bring something in.
Bring a couple, 2, 3 in, at least let you see just what it does look like, try them out. Maybe it's something we can look at too, so you just see how big it really is.
bigger.
Much bigger.
So on the microcomputer, can you then also, does it have other ports that if you brought your own computer, for example, for some reason and wanted to, or, I mean, because I know I haven't done it, but I know previous council members would sometimes plug into the tower with their own laptop because they had something on there that they wanted to show, or just to look at their research.
Like a USB key, or do you know exactly what you mean by plugging into the tower?
And I don't know that any of us do this, but I'm just trying to think of what other council members used to do. They would bring in their whole laptop and
I think they were accessing the electrical port, though.
Is that all they were accessing? They weren't actually.
Probably the internet.
Yeah. Okay.
Would it have an extra USB port though, or something like that?
Yes.
Yeah, there's one on the front,
Okay.
and 4 on the back, actually.
Okay.
There'd be 2 for mouse and keyboard, right? So there'd be plenty open.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions, or? Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item is reports from boards and commissions. Library board minutes, January 15th. 2019. Received into record. Airport Commission minutes, February 14th, 2019. Received into record. Staff comments.
I'm pleased to announce that the municipal golf course will be opening for business at 10 a.m. on Wednesday, March 27th. That's 2 days from now. Polish up your clubs.
Yep.
Waterproof your shoes.
No kidding.
Need galoshes or waders to...
That wouldn't hurt.
Okay. Any other staff comments?
Nope, I think we're good, sir.
Okay, very good. Council comments.
Some of us had the pleasure of attending the Chamber of Commerce banquet last Friday night, which was a very nice event, and Tab Ray got the Lifetime Achievement Award at the dinner. So it was a very nice event. I also wanted to mention the passing of Les Zelli, who passed away late last week. I had the privilege of growing up next door to him. They lived next to our house for about 50 years. But he was a devoted public servant, was on city council, was mayor, grew up here, went away for World War II, came back, worked at Shield Banham. Just a devoted public servant, and every time I went to visit him at Bartles, we talked about city business. And I have 2 boxes of historical papers of the city that I need to, engineering reports from 1950 whatever, that I need to figure out where I can archive them.
Former council member and mayor.
He was mayor, yeah, mayor and council. I think he was on other planning and zoning, and I don't know what else. So. And, you know, I will say that was back in the day when you could live next door in harmony with someone you didn't agree with politically, because he and my mom were on the council together and did not always see eye to eye. But things were, I never remember significant vitriol. So, so just wanted to mention him.
Okay.
Very good. Any other council comments?
I'll be at the beach house afterwards. Anyone who wants to talk about fireworks? Have beer. The other thing is the horse sale, I believe, is starting tomorrow. So please be welcoming to all of the out-of-town visitors. I ran on my walk here this evening. I ran into some people who were going to the diner. So it's always good to have visitors from out of town spending their money in town. So please be welcoming those visitors.
And just one more thing about Les Zelli. I spoke with his brother Ed this week, and he told me that Les was just a few weeks from his 95th birthday, so he was getting close. We didn't discuss the library board minutes. Just a heads up in case anybody is interested. They took a momentous decision at their last meeting. They're going to experiment for 1 year with no fines to see if that makes a difference and if the earth opens up and swallows up the library. So part of that, I think, is to encourage young people to use the library and not be fearful about the fact that maybe if they get an overdue book, they might get arrested or something. The chair of the board said, that they had discussed this thing to death, and they finally took a vote at the last meeting, and my prediction is that that'll be the policy from now on. So just so you know.
Good. Any other council comments? I would like to expand on Ann's comments about Tab Bray and the Lifetime Achievement. The other 4 awards that the chamber made was Barb Bridges got the Community Service Award. She's been at various places of employment around town. And Cedar Valley Hospice was the recipient of the not-for-profit organization. East Bremer Diner, the small business recipient, and Meyer Pharmacy, the large business recipient. And one other thing, congratulations to Mike Cherry on his first grandchild. A new grandpa, doesn't he? Yes, he a new granddaughter born Saturday. Yesterday.
Oh,
That's
wow.
right.
That's great. Congratulations.
Other than that, I have no comments other than, there's lines on Bremer Avenue,
Just in time for the horse sale.
Just in time, they're working on the crosswalks and the turn arrows and various things.
And by lines, you mean stripes, not backed up traffic.
Yeah, right. Well, a little bit of that also yet, Mike, but no, other than that, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor of adjournment, say yes.
Yes.
We are adjourned.